Welcome to Journey of a Joke, and today we discuss Naveen Richard's being mathematically challenged and using step marks.
I'm not the smartest guy in the world, I will admit that. But I'm not the dumbest guy. Like in school, I wasn't a class topper, but I never failed any subjects either. Like I never made my parents proud, but they didn't give up on me either. All right.
It's a 4-minute bit.
Yeah.
How long did it take for the entire bit to finalize and become what it is, from the advent to the end?
I think it was one of my earliest bits. Like I started off writing in a weird way. I didn't go to open mics and stuff initially. I just joined this theatre group and started doing comedy then. So, like my first show wasn't an open mic. My first show of stand-up was like 200 people, and then I had to do 20 minutes then. Then the next day we wrote another 20 minutes. So this is part of the next year's 20-minute bit. I know what you're looking like. That's not how it works. I know that's. But I still have, like, some of my best bits are still from that first 20 minutes that I take, the fresh, virgin material, untouched, tasty. It's from that. So then, to rewrite that and make it a 4-minute bit, I think it was a 1.5, 2-minute bit. To rewrite it into a 4-minute bit, when I really sat down, I would say, like, a couple of months. Make it, stretch it out.
Like I never made my parents proud, but they didn't give up on me either. All right. I always sat in this sweet spot of disappointment that is known as the just pass guys, you know? Just pass. Just scrape through. Every time.
Now, the good thing to notice here is that the word sweet spot and the word disappointment are used together. They are used in juxtaposition. Juxtaposition. Now, what is juxtaposition? Juxtaposition is the fact of two things being seen or placed close together in contrasting effect. All right, back to where we were.
So yeah, so this came when I was writing the 1 hour. I'm like, all right, let's bring structure. So this was the intro, and I'm like, oh good, I found some stuff. I'm like, it's a sweet spot of disappointment, and that's how I felt throughout my life when it came to studies. Is my parents are like, well, he's not dumb, but something to him, he'll make it, you know. Something.
Math was my most difficult subject. I hated freaking studying math, man. I remember the first time they taught us addition and stuff, you know. They were just like warming us up in, you know, first of all, like single digit numbers, right? It's like 2 plus 3. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, wow, that's so easy. I can't believe my dad used a calculator for this. I must be a genius. Wow. I have a human calculator right here. Yay. I'm so smart, guys. I'm a scientist. Yay.
So this is from my second 20 minutes in my second year of comedy. I had just one bit of it, which is just the counting with my fingers, because that's what I still do to this day. Back then I would be blatant. Now to this day I'm like a little more subtle. Character actually also wasn't this annoying actually. Initially when I used to do it, I used to play it a little bit more real.
Can you tell us how exactly that was?
I mean, it went from I don't know which numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't. I sound like Rick Morty now, but
yeah.
But then
It's like a South Indian Morty.
Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, now I wanna give it everything, which I didn't need to, but I'm like, I'm gonna get full energy. Then it went even more like, I can't. 125. and the thing is, those are not the jokes. When I act out stuff, it's usually based in reality. And I did think, man, this is freaking easy. I remember reading the board and I'm like, this is easy. And I remember thinking as a kid, why does my dad need a calculator for this? So when I'm doing conversations, it's usually stuff that's already played out in my head. Sometimes, you know, the sting in the tail ending could be made up, but the thoughts leading up to it are almost always real.
Calculator is the funniest word in this entire bit.
Okay.
Hilarious because, number one, if you're writing a joke down, you would have to, on the second draft, you'll be like, oh, by the way, if I make calculator like a calculator, it'll be funny because he's a kid. It's too premeditated.
Yeah.
This seems instinctive because of your theatre or generally being a ghoul.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that came, you know, when there was a good show going on and you're improvising and when the audience having a good time. And then I used to say calculator for like the first 2 years I was doing the joke. And then I'm like, one day when I was having a good time re-exploring it, I'm like, you know, you just say, calculator, and I got an extra laugh. I never got as big a laugh as the first time I said calculator because it came out of nowhere. And you know how the audience knows when you're having genuine fun as opposed to premeditated this work.
He's presenting the same thought, but in a more interesting manner than the traditional setup punchline. Take a look at the payoff to the single-digit number counting and how he escalates it.
Then they went on to double-digit numbers. I didn't see that coming. You know, just threw it right at me. 25 plus 25. Okay. No problem. I have calculator. Cool. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. The thing is, you know, as a kid, you would never stop to take a breath when you were counting, you know? Because you were so afraid you'd forget the numbers like 25, 26, 27, 25, 26, 27. So then you'd summon like every breath of oxygen you had in your body just to get to the end of the counting. But then halfway through, you'll start sounding like a satanic demon, you know? 25, 26, 27, 28. 30, 31, 31, 31. The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Initially, you know, when I used to do it, I remember at shows, I'd be 25, 20, 20, 20, 20, 31, 32. And that was, again, that came instinctively. I'm like, oh, this is how I used to count. 30, 30, 35, 30. And then I realized, oh shit, I remember how you used to count like this when you would run out of breath and you would make these weird noises. Then I'm like, I pushed that to what does that sound like when you're like 35, 30, 31, 38, 39, 40, 41. And then you like go silent when you run out of breath because it, and that observation I would, actually was the most relatable out of the whole bit. Even people who could count would laugh at that. Be like, oh yeah, freaking! I remember a few people who would count like that. And then when I'm like, all right, let's push it. What else? Gotta stretch it out even more. Was the satanic demon thing. Then one of those improvising good show days, the power of Christ compels you bit came.
Observe how Naveen tags his punchline with another one. 25, 26, 27, 28.
30, 31, 31, 31. The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Another way to look at this joke is that it is a setup and punchline. The setup is...
Because you were so afraid you'd forget the numbers like 25, 26, 27, 25, 26, 27. So then you'd summon like every breath of oxygen you had in your body just to get to the end of the counting. But then halfway through, you'll start sounding like a satanic demon, you know?
And the punchline being...
30, 31, 31, 31.
And the tag...
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! 31, 33, 34.
And bam, another tag.
31, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42.
Okay, what is a tag? A tag in its simplest explanation is multiple punchlines that follow the main punchline of the same premise.
Excuse me, can I borrow your fingers, please? I promise I'll return, God promise.
Now that was the final tag to his one setup about running out of breath and punchline being sounding like a demon. This is a great example to see how many jokes can be extracted with one clearly defined and very relatable setup. He goes from out of breath to counting on feet to borrowing fingers to kids' usual response of sharing.
I promise I'll return, God promise. No, if I give my fingers to everyone, then it'll get over. No. By the time I got to multiplication, I had to start using all my other body parts and all. I was like, carry over in the nipples and the remainder in the belly button over here. By the time we got to integration, I just gave up.
But why don't you explore mathematics more? I mean, the multiplication more, because
I don't understand it. Yeah.
Because the inherent punchline is coming. The inherent integration solid bit is just about to come. Was it a setup for your integration?
Yeah, it was just like, let's get to that, I think. I mean, I must have tried to think of what multiplication is. And all I could remember about multiplication is where the hell does this carryover go? And then I remember thinking, what's a good body part? I've used my fingers, I've used my toes. Ears doesn't sound funny. Knees, I'm like, what's a funny body part? Nipples always funny. Belly button, not always thought of, but weird, you know. And
that's why the choice instead of the penis to be a belly button is way funnier, because you're describing it as a kid.
Okay.
And also the genuine thing is that, oh, what's a funny body part? You know, below body part funny, everyone's first thought is penis.
I guess.
But you went with belly button, which is even funnier because the word belly button has a lot more comedic resonance than
belly
penis.
button's a funny little stink hole, yeah.
I clean it. I know.
I clean it too.
By the time we got to integration, I just gave up. Because they'd be all like, compute the value of sin x theta into tan theta beta schmeta. Beta beta beta. Integration.
Integration, I gave up, got a laugh, right? Then you continue with the thought that compute the value of, and then you enact like that arrogant teacher, which is that theta, pita, shmita.
That's actually the question paper talking. I mean, because the teacher doesn't say it. In my head, I was like, this question paper is being all like, oh, look at this difficult thing. Can you do it? Can you do it? Can you understand it? And I always felt like it was mocking me. I'm like, I don't understand this.
But the thought was more. He continued to act like a kid and render the punchline.
And I'd be like, excuse me. Excuse me, where are all the numbers, please?
And then a callback to,
I have my fingers to count with numbers, but there are no numbers.
a callback is a punchline from a previous joke which can be used again in a new familiar context. A callback is such a potent comedic device that you would see many comedy bits and sets and specials ending with a callback. Alright, back to where we were.
And in times like those is when I would rely on a little old tactic that I like to call step marks. Yeah, good old step marks to the rescue, man. You know what step marks are? It's that thing after the question, in the answer sheet, you will draw a line, and within the confines of that line, you would communicate to the teacher through the medium of symbols and numbers to tell her to have mercy on you.
You didn't hyperbole any character. Even if you did, it would have been funny.
Yeah.
You really sold the joke. You misled the audience into thinking it's going to be about symbols and numbers and some mathematical joke. And they're like, have mercy, because that's what step marks are.
Yeah.
When did this observation come to you? When you were doing an open mic or when you were sitting and writing?
When I was sitting and writing, I think I remember where I wrote it. I was in my... this is a good bit in terms of... It is a combination of my mature and... Not immature, but my early comedy days. So Counting My Fingers was my early comedy days where I would just full act out. This step marks thing, misdirection and all, was my last year when I was writing down structure and that kind of stuff came. So I remember sitting in the dining table and I'm like, all right, special's coming up, let's flesh it all out. And then, you get some shit and you get some good stuff as well.
Now the setup was,
And in times like those is when I would rely on a little old tactic that I like to call step marks. Yeah.
and the punchline,
Within the confines of that line, you would communicate to the teacher through the medium of symbols and numbers to tell her to have mercy on you.
he continues to explore step marks a little more.
But to do step marks, you have to know what the hell you're doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just general mathematics. 2 into 2 is 4, 2 into 5 is 10, a plus b the whole square is equal to a square plus b. Oh, I don't know that. I'll do step marks for that formula also. Step marks over there.
So it was a relatively fresh observation. I think I would say it was 1 month old. And I remember doing an open mic and Tanmay, who heard it, she's like, hey, why don't you do it's a what do you call it? Stairway. It's since it's step, it becomes a staircase or something like that. I'm like, how some jokes, they sound fucking funny when someone tells them to you. You're like, yeah, that's clever, but then you try it and it's since it didn't come from your own heart like the audience didn't get. So I guess it's the thought of, I'm like, if it was 1 year old, then I would have figured out a better way to do it. I wanted to give my thing was I want to give a visual of all the shit that goes into the step mark. I could have skipped what goes in there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give a visual of how crowded it looks.
This is a good example of how you can go away slightly from your main storyline, but no matter how good that joke is, you have to come back to the main part and resolve it.
I come back to the main part. Then write A, N, S, double line, semicolon. And then I'll just write my birthday over there.
It's like drawing borders on a freaking, when you're in your dissertation, you're like, how do I make this bullshit look good? You put borders on it. And here you're like a double line, semicolon. Teachers like this shit.
Yeah.
It's like there is shit here. I'm just going to polish it up with some double line, semicolon bullshit. Really clever math. The kids who did math, they won't give a shit. They know their answer is right. I'm sure my answer is wrong. I'm sure. My whole life has just been pleading to people have mercy on me for Like when a cop catches me for some shit, I'll be like, "Listen, I'm a nice guy. It's not worth it. Just let me get on with my life." So that's me also just saying, just let me get on. Look at all this other stuff I'm doing. Just let me go. It's freaking get through life without.
It's that. It's your version of begging.
Yeah, it's my version of begging.
Telling a joke is like, imagine a painting. You add a dot, and the audience is trying to guess what it could become. But then you draw a line, and there are only fewer options of the audience's imagination going wild. And then you make a square, and it narrows it down even more. And then bam, surprise them with something else.
Yep, that's all you got, man.
That's all the common questions.
That's all the comments.
Cool, buddy, cool.
Hey, cool, buddy, cool. Incredible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Hey guys, if you like this episode of Journey for Joke, share it with your other friends who are trying to find out about more comedy and cool. I like guys.
And don't forget to comment.
That's not me.
It's just me.
Also, there are other episodes Journey of a Joke on www.journeyofajoke.com.
There's a website?
Yeah.
Cool, buddy.
Yeah. That's a website.
www.journeyofAjoke.com.
.com. Journey of a Joke. www.